Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashaധ്യായിനീം Amba Tvamanusantatami Bhagavad-gite Bhavatveshini
Namostute Vyasa Vishala-buddhe
Pullara-vindayaka Patra-netra
Yena Tvaya Bharata-taila-purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya-pradeepaha Prapanna-parijataya Totra-vetraika-panaye Jnana-mudraya Krishnaya Gita-amrita-duhe Namaha Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogha-gopala-nandanaha Partho Vassa Sudhir-bhokta Dugdham Gita-amritam Mahat Vasudevasutam Devam Kamsa-chanuramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru Krishnam Vande Jagadguru Hari Om.
Hari Om everybody and welcome. It is really wonderful to be here in Letterkenny with all of you. It is my first time in this area and I think it's very nice. As Panditji mentioned, we are studying the Bhagavad Gita. Chinmaya Mission has taken a sankalpa to study the entire Gita of 700 verses, 18 chapters, over 108 nights at 108 different mandirs. We are just about a third way through the 108 nights, and we are also just about a third through Bhagavad Gita itself. We are almost finished with chapter 6, so you all will see the end of chapter 6 today. But you were not there the previous days, so what happened and where are we now and what is this Gita all about? Bhagavad Gita is a dialogue. Can you all hear me? Okay. Bhagavad Gita is a dialogue between Bhagavan Shri Krishna and Arjuna. Arjuna is on the battlefield and he is about to fight with his cousins who happen to be the bad guys. They happen to be the most diabolical sinners that you can imagine. But because they're his family, Arjuna does not want to fight them. He is scared to do his duty of protecting dharma because it is his family. In this state that he is in, the whole of chapter 1 centers on Arjuna telling Bhagavan Shri Krishna why he should not fight, why he should not do his duty. And he colors it in such wonderful language that when people hear it, they think Arjuna is right. But fighting with your family is not good, no matter what. People say things like that when they hear that. But actually, when you study it, chapter 1 points out Arjuna's total confusion about what is going on. Then in chapter 2, Bhagavan Shri Krishna yells at Arjuna. And he says, what is wrong with you? Why are you being so scared? Get up and fight. And Arjuna says, no, I am confused about what to do. And I want you to tell me what to do. But unless you convince me, I am not going to fight. So then Bhagavan now starts to give him the solution to his problem, which happens to be the highest knowledge that one can find in our scriptures. And he also tells him about the preparation to get that knowledge. So like that, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5 go by. And at the end of chapter 5, Bhagavan Shri Krishna tells Arjuna that you must gain firm abidance in this knowledge. The question now is, well, he's spoken for 4 chapters. How will he suddenly gain abidance by Lord Krishna saying gain abidance? And what exactly is this knowledge that he is talking about? Our Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda has a nice story. There was a man who thought that he was a mouse. Have you ever met a man who thought he was a mouse? Yeah? No. I haven't met a man like this. I've only heard about him. So this man thought that he was a mouse. Now, if you think you're a mouse, what is the problem? You can think you're a mouse and live your whole life like a mouse. But this man was married, and his wife finally got fed up. She said, every time a cat comes, this man goes and hides in the corner. This is craziness. I can't deal with this man anymore. So she took him to a psychiatrist. Psychiatrist, to fix his mind. Because he's actually a man, but he thinks he's a mouse and he's acting like a little mouse. So the psychiatrist said, what happened? And the wife said, look, this silly man, he thinks he's a mouse. And every time he sees a cat, he goes and he runs away. I'm fed up, you please do something. So the psychiatrist said, no problem. You give me $500, not Guyana dollars, US dollars. And you leave him with me for 1 week. And at the end of 1 week, you come and pick him up. So he put this man in a room and he played a CD. And on that CD it said, you are not a mouse, you are a man. You are not a mouse, you are a man. And that CD played over and over and over. That same soundtrack was playing all day, every day for 7 days. At the end of the 7 days now, the man's wife came back. And she said, can I take my husband? The psychiatrist said, come, let us go and check. So he went, and now together they went to ask the man, did you learn anything? He said, yes, I learned something. What did you learn? I learned, you are not a mouse, you are a man. He's telling the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist said, oh God, I made a mistake. Leave him for 1 more week with me and come back later. So this time, in the soundtrack, he what did he say now? I am not a mouse, I am a man. And that is what this man who thought he was a mouse listened to for 1 whole week. At the end of the week, now the wife came, and the psychiatrist and the wife went to check what has happened. What did you learn? He said, I learned I am not a mouse, I am a man. So the wife said, wow, thank you, doctor. Now I can take him home. So she gave him his money very happily, and she took her husband. Well, before they got to the car, a cat ran across the road. And this man ran back into the doctor's office, and he ran and he jumped on the table and he did like this. And the doctor said, well, what is wrong with you? What happened? Doctor, I saw a cat. So what if you saw a cat? He said, you're a man, you're not a mouse, what will the cat do to you? He said, doctor, I know I'm a man, but does the cat know I'm not a mouse? Now look at that. He thinks he is a, he thinks he's a what? A mouse. But what is he really? A man. Can a cat do anything to him? The only way a cat can do something to him is if he has something wrong in his mind. Right? So now we hear this story and we laugh and we're like, how can it be possible that someone will think that they're a mouse and then they're scared of a cat if they're actually a person? Not possible. Have you ever heard something like that? No. But our scriptures tell us we laugh at this story, but we are exactly like that man. I'll show you how. Have you heard Chidananda Rupaha?
Shivoham.
What does that mean? It means my nature is consciousness, my nature is bliss. And I am of the nature of auspiciousness. There's no difference between me and Bhagavan. Correct or wrong? And we sing that all the time. Now, when you go out, do you act like your nature is bliss? Or your nature is sorrow? I'm so sad, you know. If only I could get that new phone, I'll be happy. If only that neighbor will go to another house and stop worrying me, I'll be happy. A whole list of things we have. When I get this, I'll be happy. When I get that, I'll be happy. Right now, I'm not okay. Right now, I'm sad. Oh God, bygone again. Everything makes us sad. So, my nature is happiness, but I think my nature is sorrow. That is no different than the man who thinks he is a mouse. You give it a little thought and you will see it is the exact same. So now our rishis say, no, but your nature is happiness and there's nothing that you need to worry about in this whole entire world. So we come to Bhagavad Gita to teach us. And the first 5 chapters, Bhagavan Shri Krishna is telling Arjuna, you are not of the nature of sorrow, you are of the nature of happiness. You are not of the nature of sorrow, you are of the nature of happiness. And at the end of chapter 5, you know what Arjuna might have said? If our Lord Krishna asked, did you learn anything? Arjuna might have said, Bhagavan, you are not of the nature of sorrow, you are of the nature of happiness. So he didn't learn anything for himself? Well, in chapter 6, Bhagavan has to change that whole thing. So what happens is, chapter 6 is the chapter on meditation, where this knowledge that was taught, that my nature is happiness, I have to sit and think about it and let it become my own experience. So I'm not just saying it, I'm actually living it. Can you imagine what your life would be if you had no sorrow, no frustration, no sadness, no irritation, no anger, no jealousy, no upsetness, only joy? Well, that is the state Bhagavan wants Arjuna and us to reach to. So a whole chapter goes by and he tells him all about meditation. Now, I cannot go into that because the chapter finished on that part, but I will tell you what happens. You imagine that you go to school. No, you are a teacher. Imagine you are a teacher. And you put in a lot of work to make a project for the children that will teach them everything that they have to learn about this chapter. And all that the child has to do it with inspiration and finish that workbook. Well, first the child looks at the thing and they say, Miss, I can't do this. You made it for the child. And the child says, Miss, I can't do it. Have you guys said that kind of thing to your teacher before? Miss, I can't do it? Okay, well, this child says, I can't do it. Then the teacher says, no, you can do it. I taught you everything. It's easy. It's not hard. Just sit and focus and you can do it. Then the child says, well, miss, you know, it's so much work. You think I could do a little bit today and a little bit tomorrow? Like if I cannot finish today, tomorrow when I come back, will you make me start again or I can just continue my work? Well, what would you call that student? That student is called pessimistic. They think they cannot do it. Well, this Arjuna is exactly like that student. You know what Arjuna said? Bhagavan said, sit and do this meditation and realize your nature. Arjuna said, Bhagavan, I don't think it is possible. This thing is too hard for me to do. For anybody to do, he says, is too hard. Bhagavan says, no, it is possible. You discipline your senses, you discipline your mind, and it is possible. Then Arjuna says, well, okay, fine. If you're saying it is possible, I can't argue with you. But I don't think I can finish it in this life. In my next life, Bhagavan, can I just continue from where I am, or I have to start back from the beginning? Have you heard people ask that, say that kind of thing? In my next janam, I will reach God. In my next lifetime, I will be better. In my next lifetime, I will have more time to study. You hear all these people say all this kind of thing? Well, that is Arjuna. He says, I can't do it now, so maybe next lifetime, but I want to know next lifetime. Well, see, when you are born again, you have to start to learn A, B, C from the beginning, right? But if you have come and you have studied 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, and then you didn't get to finish, and then you're born again in your next lifetime, you have to start back from chapter 1, or you can continue from chapter 7. This is Arjuna's question, like that. So Bhagavan says, well, let Bhagavan say. Why should I tell you? We're going to chant from here and see what Bhagavan says about somebody who did not finish their spiritual journey, but was on the spiritual path, and they died, or they're not. Then they are born again. In their next life, what happens to them? Right. So let us chant. This is now verse 40 of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6. I'm going to chant Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, and then you all are going to repeat Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. You're not going to listen, you're actually going to repeat. Is that okay? Yeah? Okay. Good. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
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 Partha Nevehanamatra Vinashastasya Vedyate,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Nahi Kalyanakrit Kaschit Durgatin Tata Gacchati.
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. You all have this question, or you don't have this question? It's only Arjuna who has it. What happens after somebody dies to their spiritual journey? They start back again? Or what? Bhagavan first says, he calls Arjuna Tata, my dear child, because he can tell Arjuna's worried about what is going to happen to him. So he says, Partha, na eva hiha, na amutra vinashtasya vidyate. First thing, let me tell you, there is no harm, no loss, no destruction for that person who has been on the spiritual path and who couldn't finish his spiritual journey. Here, in this world, or in their next life. there is no loss, no destruction for that person. Means all the effort that they did is not lost. If they went to the mandir, the punya karma that they got from going, they still have that. If they read one verse of Bhagavad Gita, they have that punya. If they tried to discipline themselves, they have that punya karma. If they sang bhajans, they have that punya karma. Whatever they did, whatever puja, bhajan, study, anything that they did, that punya karma does not disappear, first of all. Then he says a very famous line, Nahi kalyana krit kaschit durgatim tata gachati. Never, ever does a person of noble good deeds go to a bad fate. Nothing bad happens to a good person. This is what Bhagavan Sri Krishna is saying. Means wherever he ended, he's going to just pick up and continue from right there. Okay? So this is direct assurance from Bhagavan that we do not need to worry about our spiritual journey. It also means we do not need to worry about having faith in goodness. Well, now you might ask, wait. You are saying nothing bad happens to good people. But then, why do good people suffer if nothing bad happens to good people? Have you seen good people suffering? Have you asked that question before? Why do good people suffer? He was such a good man. How could this happen to him? How could he get sick? No, you not ask that question asked. Okay, well, I will tell you. The first thing is, a truly good person, what we call as suffering, they don't think it is suffering. Okay? From our point of view, we're calling that thing suffering. But from their point of view, it is not suffering. Right? For example, have you seen children playing outside in the hot sun all day? Have you watched children play outside in the hot sun all day? Maybe you did that at one point in time in your life too. Okay? Now, somebody who is looking at you, it is hot, it is sweaty. That child hasn't eaten for like 7 hours because they're so busy playing. Well, if you put an adult to do that, that will feel like suffering for that adult, isn't it? You're not allowed to come inside. You're not allowed to go and get any shade. You're not allowed to eat anything. You had to be outside in the sun all day for 7 hours. Suffering or not? That adult will say, oh my God. But the children do it happily. So it is suffering for one person, but it is not considered suffering for the other one because they're enjoying that. In the same way, it is possible for one person to go through an experience and not consider it to be suffering. Real pain someone can go through and they may not feel that it is pain at all. Sri Ramana Maharishi, he's a great saint in our tradition. When he was meditating, it is described he actually had maggots eating at his flesh because of how he wasn't moving. But he did not feel any of that as suffering because he was feeling a different joy altogether. So the first thing is what we define as suffering is different for us versus people like that. The second thing is from the physical point of view, some people might say, well, that is his karma. Have you heard that statement? Well, that is his karma, so he had to go through it. Well, there's something even greater than karma, and that is the principle that if a human being is born in this world, they have to go through positive and negative. Not a single person can live in this world in such a way where they get only joy and no sorrow. So being good or being bad is not a measure of whether you're going to get positive and negative things in your life. Those things are going to come because it is the world. A good person will only get sun and no rain. No, he's a good person, so when he hangs his clothes outside, it shouldn't rain. Anybody can say something like that? That's craziness. It's going to rain because it's going to rain. It doesn't matter if you're good or you're bad, it's going to rain. Right? So in the exact same way, pain and suffering from a physical point of view will come whether you're a good or a bad person. That has absolutely nothing to do with being good or being bad. Good people don't die. Good people live forever? No. So the measure of whether someone is suffering and going through problem, the fact that they live in this world means they have to go through physical pain as well. That is the nature of the world. But the problem comes is we say, if Bhagavan says no bad happens to good people, I'm not convinced of that, and I will tell you why. Have you heard people who go to work and they say, in today's day and age, you cannot be honest at work. The world is not like that anymore. Have you heard people say things like that? Yes, absolutely, people say things like that. Well, Bhagavan is saying, were you practicing goodness to not suffer and to not go through problems, or were you practicing goodness for goodness sake? Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda, someone went to him and said, at my work, it is not possible for me to not cheat. I have to cheat to be able to get ahead in this business world and in my workplace. Gurudev looked at him and he said, that kind of project will only come to you because they know you will take it. What? It means if the company knows there is somebody who is really good and they want that employee, they will not give them the kind of thing that makes the employee have to cheat and compromise on their values. But if a person is willing to, then the company will take advantage of it and make them do more of it. Auntie is saying yes. Now, two things about this. If somebody is 99% good, that means for 23 hours of the day they are very good. When they're asleep, they're very good. When they're awake, most of the day they're very good. But for like 1 hour of the day, they're really bad. Will you call that person a good person? Well, 90% of their time they're good. So they're good or they're bad? No, this you have to answer. If someone is 90% good and 10% bad, so in the 10% of the time they go and they're rude and they're mean and they kick and they hurt and they trouble other people, they're a good person or they're a bad person? Well, you can say what you want, but the reality of the situation is only if somebody is 100% good, they are considered to be good. Goodness requires 100% pass. 80% pass is not enough to be called good. Right? The other thing is, we're not supposed to practice values for other people to give us things or do things for us or for us to not to suffer. We're supposed to practice values because values is what is the right thing to do. But if you say, no, but I was honest, what did I get? That means you were honest to be honest, or you were honest to get something. And we teach that to children also, If you don't lie, I will give you a chocolate. What are we teaching them? You see? So Bhagavan is saying, guaranteed, nothing bad happens to someone good. But that definition of good is the 100% good person, first of all. And the definition of bad is, what we consider bad is not what they consider bad. So Bhagavan's words cannot be false. We just have to think about it. I want to tell you all one last thing about this suffering. Why do people think suffering is bad? Everyone says, oh, this person is suffering, that is so sad. Do you know, it is only when a person goes through difficulty and challenges that they grow? That you see in the animal world, in nature as well. It is only when there is a limited resource that there is survival of the fittest, and then you have a better evolution and all they tell in science, right? In the same way, you watch your life. Did you grow as a person when everything was happy and nice, or when trouble came? They call it also, when that child is growing pains, isn't it? To grow, pain has to be there. So suffering, when suffering comes in your life, you look at it and you say, oh, thank you, I'm ready to grow now, you know? And that suffering will not feel like suffering anymore. This is the secret that Bhagavan is telling. If we hold on to the conviction that nothing bad happens to a good person, and you hold on to that goodness no matter what the world says, no matter how the world is changing, no matter nothing, and Bhagavan's word will not fail us, for sure. Okay, so that was the introduction. Now he's actually going to tell what happens to somebody after they drop this body, not having finished the spiritual path. So let us chant. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
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 Prapya Punya Kritam Lokan Ushitva Shashvati Samaha.
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shuchinam Srimatam Gehe Yogo Brashta Vijayate.
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Athava yoginameva kule bhavati dhimata.
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Etadhi durlabhataram loko janma. Etadhi durlabhataram loke janma yadidrisham.
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. Prapya Punya Kritan Lokan Ushitva Shashvati Samaha. This person who hasn't finished their spiritual journey, who died in between, and they didn't reach the goal of realizing their nature is happiness, well, first what happens is they go to the worlds that are attained by punya karmas. Means they go to what we call Svarga Loka, Pitri Loka, loosely translated as heaven. You all know heaven? Everybody here knows heaven? Well, the heaven that Christianity talks about is different than the heaven that we have in our Shastra. In Svarga, we go and we enjoy, and when our punya karma is finished, then we leave Svarga. It is exactly like a vacation. How long do you go for a vacation for? Well, you go for maybe 1 week or 2 weeks. And then when your money runs out and your vacation time runs out, then you have to come back to the real world, they call it, right? In the same way, We go to Swarga because of punya karma, because of meritorious deeds that we have done in this life. And we enjoy like anything. Do you know, they say that in Swarga, you know the joy you get from licking an ice cream like one lick? In Swarga it is 100 times more. That same one lick of ice cream. Can you imagine an ice cream tasting 100 times more nice? Like that. Okay? So, in our tradition, there's countless worlds you could go to. Some wonderful world where you could go and enjoy. First, they go there. Then they live there for many years based on all of their punya karma. When it is finished, then what happens? Shuchi nam Shrimatam gehe abhijayate. That person now is born in the house of somebody who is pious, like a good home where they follow values, and they have prosperity. So they have culture and they have money. Have you seen what happens when people have money and no culture? Well, that's just bad news all around. Over here, this person gets born into a house where there's culture, there's values, there's appreciation for our tradition, and there's prosperity. So they don't need to struggle to fulfill basic needs. All of that is fulfilled. And whatever desires they may have had that were not fulfilled in the past, there is money now that they can go and enjoy those desires and realize it is not really what I thought it was, and they're ready to drop it also. Right? Then, because of this environment, they can now grow spiritually. So this is what Bhagavan says happens to somebody who has been on the spiritual path but didn't finish. They get born into a home where spirituality can continue for them in a comfortable way. Athava, he says, or the other thing that could happen is this. He could be born in a family of yogis, very spiritually advanced people who are very wise, very learned. Right? Meaning, and in the commentary it is actually written that they may be poor people also. Means they may be living in poverty, they may not have prosperity and all of that. But where there is wisdom, poverty doesn't feel like suffering. So this person is now born into a home where they're not distracted by wealth, and they can really focus on their spiritual journey because there's a very little effort remaining that they have to put in to get this great goal. So now you tell me, if somebody is born into a poor home, is that good karma or bad karma? We will normally say, oh, some bad karma that they did, they get born into a poor home. But I tell you, you cannot know. Because if someone is highly spiritually evolved, they can very well be born into a poor home, but that poor home is filled with the richness of values and spirituality. And in that surrounding now, they grow. Right? Then he says, Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, a birth like this is way more difficult to get in this world than the previous one, where you're born into a prosperous home, which is a good family and all of that. Why is this one more difficult? Well, first of all, someone who is so highly spiritually evolved itself is more rare. So to find someone like that is rare. The second thing is that that person needs parents who are so spiritually evolved. Now, have you not seen very highly spiritually evolved people? They don't want to get married. They want to go and become swamis and brahmacharis and live in the Himalayas and live alone, and they don't want to get married. So, which family will this child come in? Or, even if they get married, they don't want to have children because this is not their focus. They want to grow spiritually, they want to study the Shastra. So, to find a family of such great people is a very rare thing, Bhagavan is saying. And those people are very blessed because they're born and they can start their spiritual journey right away. So, what happens? They're born into a family where they can continue. But depending on how advanced they are, they get born into a family accordingly. Bhagavan gives us exactly what we want and exactly what we need, both at the same time without us realizing. Now what happens when they go there? He continues. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
Tatra tam buddhi samyogam labhate korvadehikam.
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
Yatato chatato bhuyah samsiddhau gurunandana.
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. Bhagavan says, now wherever he is born, see what happens to him. Buddhi samyogam labhate parvadehikam. Whatever buddhi, whatever progress he had made, whatever samskaras he developed, whatever values he developed, whatever virtues, whatever knowledge that he got in his previous body, all of them come back to him. They become manifest in this life. Right? Have you seen some children are born and the parents will say, this child is like a sadhu. Have you heard parents describe children like that? Or grandparents will say, this looks like a, or old soul. They say this is an old soul. Means there's something about them that you didn't give to them. They have come with, and they already have the values that everyone is striving for, you know? Then he says, wherever that journey was left off, they continue from there. Now, you know, the interesting thing is, this may not happen like as soon as they're born. You will see great Mahatmas grow up just like ordinary little boys and girls. Naughty like anything, troubling everybody, going and opening their neighbor's cow so that they go away and then the neighbor has to go and run after it. All kinds of naughty things they could do, right? But as they grow and as their mind develops, slowly the mind will discover its previous qualities and it will all just come back to this being. Because the mind is not new. That is why they explain that the mother does not give birth or make the mind of the child. The mother will give the body of the child, but the mind of the child has come with them. It is their own mind that they brought. That means if your child is practicing good values, you cannot say, I gave them that, you know? No, what do you mean? Of course I gave them that. No. They came with those values, and in your home, the environment was right for that to come out and to manifest and to express itself. You gave them the right environment. Like if you plant a seed in the ground, can you say, I made a pink flower grow? I made the flower pink, you know? No. You just gave that seed the right environment and it grew into what it had to be on its own. If parents understand this, I tell you, their whole parenting journey will be so wonderful. They will never have the problems that modern parents have. Because they understand this is a jiva who has come and is on its own journey. But then children will not go through the suffering of parents forcing them to do, I want you to be a doctor. It doesn't matter that you want to go and be a brahmachari. Right? The parents will allow the children to live the life that they were meant to live. It also means that our spiritual age cannot be measured the way we measure body age. You know, you cannot see somebody and tell how spiritually advanced they are, because you will have young people interested in it, you'll have old people interested in it, then you'll have people who are older than you and still not interested. Have you seen some old uncles and aunties? You think, man, they should be in mandir, they should be studying Gita, they should be doing something better with their life, and whole day they're sitting on the road playing dominoes. You can't hold their hand and force them and bring them there if they are not ready for it. So spiritual age has nothing to do with our physical age. And a young child can be more spiritually advanced than even older people. So we don't judge anybody. We just think about ourselves and our own spiritual journey like this. You'll see, you'll have some people who are wondering, you know, how do I get the next promotion? How do I get ahead? And then another person who's their colleague is wondering, well, what is the purpose of life? What am I doing here? Why am I doing all this? When is this going to end? Do I have to do this for the next 50 years? Like, what is going on? You know? So that is because of purva samskaras that they have come with. Okay. Now Bhagavan says exactly how this happens. So let us chant. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
Purvabhyasena tenaiva dhyate yavashopi saha.
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
Jignasurapi yogasya shabda brahmati vartate.
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
Prayatnayatamaanastu yogi samshrita kilvishaha.
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
Aneka janma samsiddhah tato yati param gatim.
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama.
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. Have you all seen some children, by the time they're 3 or 4 years old, they pick up an instrument and start to play? Like a little child, they cannot even reach the top of the tabla. But with their little hands, they go and they touch it, and you think, I have been playing for 10 years and I don't sound like that? oh, how did they get like this? Or somebody just picks up the harmonium for the first time and it sounds like Mother Saraswati is sitting on their hands moving the fingers. And you wonder, well, what happened? Bhagavan was impartial and he favored them and he gave them this power? No. Nothing happens. There's no effect without a cause. In the same way that a person continues their spiritual journey and picks up where they left off, it is the same with everything else in this world. All the talents that we see, some people are naturally good at things. Some people can naturally just speak nicely. Some people can naturally, any talent that you see. Some people can naturally play football really well. Whatever it is because they practiced in their previous life. That means, if you feel you are too old to learn something, man, I'm 50 years old now. What am I going to start to learn harmonium now? I will die before I finish. This verse is there to tell us, it doesn't matter. You put the effort in and you try and it will not go to waste. It will continue in your next life. In fact, in your next life, you'll pick it up and learn it effortlessly because you put the effort in now. So Bhagavan is inspiring us to not delay in doing anything good, because whatever good we do, it is not going to go to waste, ever, at all. How does that happen? Have you guys ridden a bicycle? You guys ride your bicycle? Have you seen when you start to pedal, first it's hard and it moves slowly, then as you pedal it becomes easier, like the pedal gain is lighter, and then all of a sudden, like, you don't even need to pedal and your bicycle will go. Am I telling a true thing? Those who ride bicycle? Yeah. Everyone here must have ridden bicycle before at some point in their life. It starts like hard, then it gets easy, then it goes by itself. One boy was riding his bicycle outside his house. And he started to get really good at it. So he went and he was riding. Then he passed. And his Aji was sitting in the veranda. So he passed her and then he went to the end of this village and he came back and he said, "Look, Aji, no hands." He's riding bicycle without his hands. Then he went the other way and he was coming back again. He said, "Look, Aji, no feet." Now he's riding without feet also. Then he gone and he come back. And now he said, "Look, Aji, no teeth." He gone and he fall and he break out all his teeth. When we ride that bicycle, it's hard in the beginning, then it gets easy, then you just go. Our spiritual journey is just like that. Because of earlier practice that was done, it is like that person picks up on their spiritual journey like in the middle of the bicycle. How they put no effort in and that thing is just moving along by itself. Okay? And nothing can stop them because the force of their previous life was so strong. Right? Our Swami, take Gurudev, Puja Gurudev, Swami Chinmayananda. He was a fantastic journalist. In fact, at the time where he had found Swami Shivananda and he had gone to interview him, he went to interview him to expose the sadhus and show how all these people doing spirituality, they're just wasting time and tricking people and it's just all a hoax, and he went to expose them. He went to do an expose on the sadhus. And he heard Swami Shivananda. And it is like something just pulled him with such force that when he went back to tell his boss, you know, I'm going to this, I need to go and study this spirituality. His boss said, "What is wrong with you? So many women will be ready to marry you. You're going to get a promotion. Your life will be so wonderful." None of that mattered because the force that pulled him was so strong that nothing could stop him anymore. And so Bhagavan says, such a person, he might just start with curiosity for this knowledge. But that person, he doesn't need to come and do all the introductory things that normal people need to do. He doesn't need to come and do rituals, he doesn't need to sit and do puja. Right away he can go and study this esoteric knowledge. Do you know, it is said that rituals are the ABCs of spirituality, and when we do rituals, it's supposed to make our mind pure so that we start to ask questions. Have you ever asked a question about coming to mandir and doing puja to your parents before? Have you had a question? Or have you been asked a question by somebody? Yes or no? Yes. Well, let me tell you what parents used to say. Did you just ask that? Do you know, when I was young, I never asked these questions? Why are you asking? What is wrong with you? Well, you know, the person who's asking is right. The rituals that we do are meant to make us ask, why are we doing what we're doing? And if a child asks, why are we doing what we're doing? And a parent or anybody, an auntie or uncle in the mandir or a pandit tells them, you shouldn't be asking questions, you should just do, they're going to turn away from our Sanatana Dharma. Because today's generation, they don't want any wishy-washy, do this, otherwise God will punish you. They want intellectually sound, logical things that match their experience of life and the way they study science and everything. So, when someone asks a question, if you do not know the answer, the correct answer is, I do not know, but there is a wonderful reason and I will find it out for you. This is what rituals are supposed to do, and when we have reached this point, we do not need them, the mind starts to ask these questions about life. Who am I? Who is God? What is my relationship with God? What is this world all about? Why is there suffering? Is it not possible? Is it that life is just this? You're born and you die and you suffer in the middle and there's some joy and some sorrow. This is the best that life can offer? Like that, the mind starts to ask questions. And when the mind asks those questions, well, the person who has done the necessary practices, their mind is ready to receive those answers. So Bhagavan says, this yogi, striving with the right effort, he becomes totally purified of all his papa, and after many lives, he becomes accomplished, and then he reaches the goal where he realizes, my nature is happiness itself. This is the great goal that is described. Have you all heard the word papa before? Papa is translated as sin usually. That is a terrible translation. Let me tell you what papa means in Sanskrit. The word papa is defined as that which protects. Papa protects? What does papa protect? It is said, papa is that which protects our sorrow. Anything that we do that makes sure we continue to be sorrowful and makes sure that we do not know our nature is happiness, that thing in our tradition is called as sorrow. All of that goes from this person's life and they realize my nature is happiness. Now, Bhagavan Sri Krishna describes finally the glory of meditation. So let us chant and we will see what he says. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama,
Shri Krishna Sharanam Bhagavan says that the person who has sat and gone through all the discipline and preparation required to realize that their nature is happiness, that person is greater than any tapasvi, anyone who sits and does tapas. You know, some people they do tapas just for show. It's like the modern generation, the way they pose with their food so people can see, you know, and then they check how many likes they got after, and then they'll make a whole setup. They'll pretend, you know, they're having a nice time with their family, and they'll take a picture of, look, we're having so much fun together. Meanwhile, that was all for show, and as soon as the picture is over, they've gone back to their life, or they're fighting with everybody. Have you seen? Or they put their friends together and they're like, okay, let's pretend that we know how to paint, and they hold paint brushes, and they people fake all the time on Instagram and Facebook and everything just to show. Well, some people, they go and they do tapas just to show, or just to say, you know, I can stand on one foot for 3 days. Can you? Well, this kind of thing Bhagavan is saying, the yogi who really has realized their nature, who is better than a tapasvi who's just stuck now in doing tapas to say they can do it, you know? Then he also says, this yogi is better than a jnani, means someone who just intellectually knows. Like he could come here and he could tell you everything about our scriptures, but he doesn't practice none of it. So he will come and he will explain how Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, you know, you shouldn't get angry, and explains why it doesn't make sense and how it destroys your intellect. And then he goes home and he gets angry. Well, someone who's established in the knowledge is someone who's just talking it, isn't it? That's what Bhagavan says. Then he's also better than someone who's acting out of desire, who's acting just to get things, to get happy. So therefore, Arjuna, become a yogi. Become someone who knows that there's nothing in this world that you need that you don't already have. And Arjuna is listening to this. Then he says, even among all people who consider themselves to be meditators, that one who has really merged with me, whose inner self has become one with me, who worships me, who loves me, full of faith, that person is considered to be the best by me. So now, Bhagavan has introduced the idea of faith, he's introduced the idea of worship, and he's introduced the idea of me. All this time he was talking about being established in the self, your nature is happiness, like that. So now the question comes, well, who are you? What is this worship? What is this faith? Can you just sing this at the end of the chapter? Because of two reasons. One is, this is what is going to propel the thought in the next chapter now, chapter 7. And the other thing is, this whole talk of meditation and doing action to prepare your mind, it might not jive with some people. You know, some people are like, oh, what? I want to go and do puja and I want to give my love to Bhagavan. What are you talking about? So there's all kinds of people in the world. Therefore, there will be all kinds of paths for everybody. Have you seen aunties coming to eat food and they're like, what? You eating pasta? That thing tastes like cardboard. You never hear an auntie saying that before. I've heard auntie tell me that. That pasta, man, it tastes like cardboard. Eat roti na? It's made out of the same thing. But for them, they don't like it, and I like it. Then they like the roti, and I want the pizza. Everyone likes different things in this world, isn't it? Is everybody forced to eat the same thing? No, you eat what you want. I mean, in your house, you're forced to eat what your mother makes. But in the world, everyone can choose to make what they want in their homes and all. We're not forced to do the same thing. In Sanatana Dharma, everyone doesn't have to follow the same path. You choose a path that's meant for you. So some people, it is the path of bhakti that appeals to them. Love for Bhagavan, singing bhajans, doing puja. So the next 6 chapters in Gita is about bhakti yoga. Let me just tell you one thing. Actually, let me ask you a question. if you have two children and they have a test the next day, and one child has learned that if you pray to Mother Saraswati, she helps you. You know, Mother Saraswati is the goddess of knowledge. You pray to her and she will help you in school. So child number 1 says, you know what? I love Mother Saraswati. I'm going to go and I'm going to do puja for her all night. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to write my exam. So he does puja with love and devotion all night. Then he takes his sleep and he wakes up and he goes and he does his exam. Then you have a next child. He doesn't even know Saraswati Ma exists. He studies properly and he goes and he writes the test. Who will pass? The child who did not study and prayed to Saraswati Ma, or the child who studied and didn't even know Saraswati Ma existed? What? So praying to Saraswati Ma does nothing? What kind of goddess of knowledge is she? Are you joking? Then why should I pray to her? You see, a little bit of thinking is required when it comes to bhakti also. Because we hear things like pray to Bhagavan, Bhagavan will take care of you. But what does it mean? And what really does bhakti look like in our lives? All of this kind of thing is what will be thought about now in the next few chapters. Who exactly is this Bhagavan? What is the purpose of worshipping Bhagavan? Because the first 6 chapters he said, use self-effort and put your effort in and work hard and gain this result. And now you're going to say, worship me and have faith in me? Oh, who are you? Where did you come from? Like that. That is what is going to come up next. So if this is something you're interested in, you can... We're going to be all over in Berbice for the next 2.5 weeks or so in East Berbice. If you're interested, please do join us. If you want, you can join on Facebook as well. But a wonderful next set of chapters is coming up. Bhakti has to do with our heart and refining our emotions. With this, chapter 6 on Dhyana Yoga comes to an end. And this is where we will end our satsang today. I'd like to take a moment to thank Pandit Raju, very much for organizing, hosting. I mean, you all didn't know who we were, what we were coming to do, and you opened your arms and you opened your mandir and you warmly invited us here. We're very happy to be here fulfilling this sankalpa of 108 mandirs because everyone is so lovingly opening their hearts to this yajna. Right? Thank you for being part of it. Tomorrow we will be in Topo, is that how you say it? Topo Lakshmi Narayan Mandir. Tomorrow it starts a little earlier. It starts at 6:30 in the evening instead of 7 o'clock. Is it far from here? Okay, well if you're interested, please do feel free to come. I would love to see you all again. And Bhakti Yoga will be starting tomorrow. On 3rd of May, which is a Saturday, at the Gandhi Youth Cricket Ground, we will be having the grand finale of this 108 nights Mahayagna that we're having. It will be so wonderful if a few of you, if not all of you, can get a bus and come down so we can celebrate this finale grand occasion together. Then, you will see at the back we will have some books for sale. Chinmaya Mission specializes in teaching and teaches to all ages in a way that is of interest to the different ages. Like right now, there's some children sitting down, eventually they got bored and left because this type of satsang is not what children enjoy. But we have the same knowledge taught to children in a fun way with games and activities and stories. So all of that is being offered in Chinmaya Mission here in Guyana. The ashram is in Monrepo and we have programs online also. You can see if there's anything of interest. But we also have books, that's what I was talking about. You'll see books for children with lots of pictures and all the stories that teach values and morals that we try to teach them but they learn it through Bhagavan Shri Krishna and Ganeshji. Roundabout Ganesha teaches them about how your parents are Bhagavan. You know, if someone has that attitude, well, families will not have the kind of problems that they have, you know. Then little tiny books that you can finish reading in 10 minutes instead of scrolling one night. Conquering the mind, like that, countless titles are there. Then in Ramayana, there's a section called Purajana Gita. This is where Bhagavan Sri Rama calls the citizens of Ayodhya. This is after he has come back from Lanka, and he gives them the message on how to live a life of dharma. A message for the citizens who want to follow dharma. So that little section from Ramayana is taken out and there's a commentary on it. Then of course, the most wonderful commentary on the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Chinmayananda. If someone is of the intellectual bent and really wants to understand what Bhagavad Gita is saying in a modern generational way, this is the best book for you. And then see, this is Sri Krishna Charita, stories about Bhagavan Sri Krishna. So there's something that will be of interest to everybody. If you want, please do see the bookstore and get whatever you like. Okay, I will now hand over back to our Panditji. Oh, sorry, we'll do Aarti first and then, sorry. Everyone, we will do Bhagavad Gita Aarti now, so you can all please stand. जय भगवद गीते मैया जय भगवद गीते हरि हिय कमल विहारिणि हरि हिय कमल विहारिणि सुंदर सुपुनीते
ओम जय भगवद गीते
कर्म सुमर्म प्रकाशिनी
कृपा भगवान् विष्णु मङ्गलं गरुडध्वजः मङ्गलं पुण्डरीकाक्षं मङ्गलायतनो हरिः त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
हरिः ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः।
हरिः ओम्।
बोलिए वृंदावन बिहारी लाल की
जय।
श्री सत्य सनातन धर्म की
जय।
श्री सतगुरुनाथ महाराज की
जय।
हर हर नमः पार्वती पतये
हर
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 हर महादेव। हरि ओम तत्सत।
प्रेम से बोलो गुरु महाराज की जय।